start this at 7:01. So, all right, is that generally okay with everyone? We want to make sure to give you your fair due, that we don't want you to feel rushed or anything like that. So, without further ado, we'll go to our
What I mean?
GCO representative. Yep, you're more than welcome to sit too. It's
That's
whatever you're
okay, that's
comfortable
all
with.
right, I can stand. Hi, I'm Sally Susi, I work at JCO in the Community Outreach Program Director. And I came to share some information with the town board about JCO and the Community Outreach Program in the town of Plattsburgh. And anyone can have a brochure that would like one, if I gave you enough. And about flyers, some other information. I'm not sure how much everyone knows about JCL, but JCL's been in Clinton County for 50 years. They celebrated 50 years this year. And they're one of 52 community action agencies in New York State. There's community action agencies all across our nation. Our main funding source for the programs that I have is through the Department of State, that comes from the federal government, and it's community service block grant funds. And those funds help support we have contracts with 11 towns in Clinton County to provide outreach services, and they provide us with space and phone and utilities, and we have contracts with them. And the contracts basically normally cover the salary, and then the community services block grant covers the fringe benefits, travel, I'm trying to think of health insurance, anything like that, the travel, the health insurance, social security. So it's, out of the community services block grant fund, it takes about 80% of it to fill in, all of those things with the grants. So that's one of the reasons that it's so important for us to keep this going and have our outreach centers, because without it, we would be pretty sad. So with the people in our town. So in the town of Plattsburgh, our outreach centers in Treadwell's Mills, and it's been there, probably over 20 years, I don't know, since the building was there probably. And it's a space in the back of the building. The outreach worker there is Tammy Wells. She's been there, I believe, a little over 3 years, maybe 4 years. She's very outgoing, and she really likes the people she works with. And so I think that's a positive. She gets along good with people, and hopefully with all of the people from the town. She seems to. But I just put some information together about what we actually do with that outreach. Tammy serves over 400 households monthly. The food pantry went up, and I just averaged for a year, like 28 families receive food each month from the pantry. They can receive food up to 8 times a year. In the last 2 months, the number's gone up to more than 30s and 40s. So she's going through a lot of food, which is supplied through another grant that JCL has with the Regional Food Bank. Last year, Tammy completed 246 Christmas Bureau applications for families in the town of Plattsburgh. And that meant that those families all got vouchers for Christmas dinner and toys for their children. She has the busiest, this is the busiest outreach for our agency. It just is. She's very good with people. People that get information and referral, about 75 households a month, would mean if there's something that we can't offer, some kind of service, this will refer the people, like for food stamps or WIC or, emergency assistance from public assistance or stop domestic violence. So we try to keep up on all the other programs in the county because we can't do everything, obviously. Last year, Tammy helped 90 households with HEAP applications and 67 of those households with emergency HEAP. We're an alternate certifier for the Department of Social Services, but we only do HEAP applications for people that do not receive any kind of SNAP benefits or any kind of public assistance. So the families that we do HEAP for the majority are working families. Office for Aging does the seniors and the disabled. So we do basically the families we work with that would HEAP are working families. And a lot of times we'll just adjust our hours for people to come after work or before work. We found that works pretty good. One of the bigger programs over the last 3 or 4 years with us has been Medicaid transportation. We provide Medicaid eligible individuals with transportation to medical appointments. In order to have that transportation, they can't have a running vehicle of their own. So we're coordinating for like 58 seniors, which is, there's 2 programs, there's Medicaid and rural transportation for seniors. Anyone over the age of 60 that can't get to their medical appointments on their own can get funded through rural transportation from Office for Aging through the county, and they don't have to be Medicaid eligible. There's no income guidelines. So in Town of Plattsburgh, we transported 58 seniors and more than 150 adults and children that are on Medicaid. And on average, Tammy's coordinating 350 medical trips to doctor's appointments or hospitals or surgery a month. That's really grown, like tripled in the last 3 months, the amount of people going to doctor's appointments. And these are people that would have no other way. The CART bus doesn't reach them, like, their CART bus comes first, then JCO, and if we can't do it, it goes to taxis. So it's very, very needy population, and we're always in need of volunteer drivers. So if anyone here would like to volunteer to drive people to Medicaid, call us. It's just, there's so many, and some people have 3 appointments a day.
Are those transports mostly in the area?
Mostly around the area. We have a lot of children that end up going to Burlington, and some children end up going to Glens Falls for dental appointments. And then we have several that go to Boston or Albany, depending on what the problem is. You know, to Boston, the Children's Hospital in Boston.
Is that because it's the only place that takes Medicaid, for example?
Yeah, that's
In
it.
Glens Falls?
Glens Falls. There is a provider in Plattsburgh now that takes Medicaid, but I think when you get to the orthodontics, then they have to go to Glens Falls, so. It's
There's so many
challenging.
dentists in this area, it seems like.
It's very challenging, especially if the children are younger, like if they're under age 5, a lot of dentists in this area don't even want to go anywhere near. So, but I know we do have one group now, so that's a really good thing, and they're doing a really good job. Last year, 140 families received Thanksgiving baskets, which a lot of the food is donated from different organizations, whether it's from Walmart, Target, or Hannaford's. There's a lot of donated, and then if we get funds donated, we buy them. But every single of those households met income guidelines, and had, most of them were, what we did with the turkeys is we gave them to families with children, and if there were single individuals, then we gave them a smaller turkey or whatever we had, you know, but we made sure that bigger baskets went to families with children. And then we also provide emergency fuel, like up to 20 gallons of fuel for people that run out of fuel and can't get their heat that same day. Or right now, at this time of year, the heat program doesn't open until November 14th, and there's a lot of people that are running out of fuel, and it's cold at night. And we did 4 today, and most of them either have someone oxygen dependent or newborn babies. So, you know, it is 20 gallons isn't a lot, but it will take them for a little bit. So we do a lot of that. We also provide people with rent and security deposits, like partial deposits. It depends on the situation. This year we had 125 children that received back-to-school supplies, which was new backpacks and basic school supplies. And then we received a T grant from CSBG, but the income guidelines are really low, like 125% of poverty. So what we did, we served at least 39 in the town of Plattsburgh. I know it was over 400 families in the county. And we went out and bought personal care items like toothbrushes, toothpaste, body wash, shampoo, brushes, combs, everything we could possibly think of, diapers, pull-ups, and then we did hoodies and sweatshirts for all the kids, and water bottles. I guess they can take water bottles to school. They have them, and then the other thing I heard is even if they have free and reduced lunch, they have to bring their own snacks for snack time. So we did like 6 or 7 snacks, like fruit and different things, and baggies for them. So we kind of do a lot of different things. It all depends, just depends on the day and if stuff's donated.
Thank you very much for this document, just trying to be attentive of your time
I
and just
know.
the evening.
You guys,
Is there any questions?
do you have any questions about what we do? On the bottom, I put the demographics so you just have an idea of who we serve, like the age groups. The majority is single and, you know, 2-parent households. And I think one of the most important points I wanted to make is that of all of the households we serve in the town of Plattsburgh, only 6% receive any kind of cash assistance from DSS, any kind of temporary assistance to needy families or cash assistance. And I think that's really huge. 63% of the families we serve at that outreach have some kind of income, whether it's child support and working income. And then there's 19% that are on Social Security or pension, and they're the people that are retired mostly or disabled. So the majority live way below the poverty level, and they are working people. So that was my biggest comment, because I mean, if only 6% of all of those households served in this whole town, and that number goes pretty much across the county for JCO. I think that's really important to think about when you think about using the town's funds. It's helping people to maintain.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Sorry to
So-
take so much
You
time.
you may have, you may have covered it already, but the overall funding, for the program comes from all the different towns, or?
For the community outreach, it does. Each town, we have contracts with 11 towns. The towns that we don't have contracts are Scott, Bosmores, and the city of Plattsburgh.
And, in terms of how much, has been contributed, have you been cutting back, or have each of the towns been contributing the same amount?
There's some that are increased and some that are staying at the same amount, you know, depending on their budgets and what they can afford. The only thing that I think is if we keep cutting back because of the way our salary scale goes and with the new minimum wage, we had to do our whole salary scale over, so our staff will get an increase in their you know, their wages, their hourly rate, regardless of the contracts, and that's where my concern is that when we need to cut the hours, and how can they serve the people that need services? That would be the biggest concern. Because I just don't have enough in my budget to cover the balance, so.
Any other questions from council members?
If there's anything, you can,
You cover seniors, you cover over 60
at every age,
at every age? But only families, I mean, you said, or I heard you say that, cover families, but if you were over a certain age and.
For Medicaid transportation, for anyone under 60, they would have to have the Medicaid. But if you're over 60, there's another program that will take you to medical appointments, and there's only home guidelines. So there's two different funding sources for medical transportation. So for seniors, they're not gonna fall through the cracks because there's another option.
And do those work in conjunction with each other?
They do,
Okay.
they do. We do both at the outreach, and they do work on, you know, conjunctions, so we don't double dipping it, like we.
Thank you for your,
Thank you.
your time and energy, and we'll be in touch soon.
Thanks.
All right,
Nice
be
day.
well.
Hey, don't forget your bag, man.
Oop, yeah, I won't be able to get out of here.
Thank you, Sally.
You're welcome. Have a good rest of your meeting.
Folks, thank you for your patience.
Thanks for your time.
I do appreciate it. We're gonna go back to the segment of public comment. Certainly we'll afford people the opportunity to come and speak to the board. I know that I've been in contact with Michael Lacey. I don't know if you would like to speak on behalf of the group, or if you certainly would like to get us started, but he's first
I
on
can
the
certainly
list.
speak for a little bit. I am preparing to speak. I
I'm
read a
understood.
speech. I'm not much of a public speaker. I did not prepare for this. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for showing some time for this cause that we have here. I'm gonna speak about a possible moratorium being put in place to relook at the zoning on Melody Lane, Plattsburgh, Town of Plattsburgh, due to the proposed Karen project that's slated to be built at the end of the street, at the end of a dead-end street. It has a population of approximately 65, 70 people, somewhere in that neighborhood, I'm not exactly sure. I would like to tell you some more about the Karen project, however, I'll be fair enough, even though we in the community have been through several meetings, maybe in the number of around 8 or so. Every time I go to those meetings, the actual changes in the plans or there's changes in the plan. So we don't even know what we're really looking at. We don't know what we're going to have into our community. But it seems as if though they're gonna really increase the number of people that live on a dead-end street, which has concerns because it's obviously gonna tax some of the things that we have in our area. If they have kids that are living there, we have no playgrounds, we have no place to go. There's that top of the road with a mall across from that. Whereas if people are gonna jaywalk across that, we're gonna have some safety issues with that involved. If the kids are gonna be in the Tom Miller Road or playing on even a dead-end street, which could be dangerous. I mean, it is, posted 30 miles an hour after I got to town to come in and post it, after writing a letter for that. But still, it's not a safe area for these kids to be if they're in fact to be families living there. But again, I do not know what's gonna be proposed for there. I was looking around outside here for a piece of paper to write some ideas on, to try to get a speech together. And what I found interesting is this current events, and it says with this disappearing of the middle class. And one of the statements it says in here, it says that today it would take almost 70% of one's income to realize that dream of owning a home. Well, a lot of people in this room that live on my street and on my street own their homes and have a lot of equity in these houses. And it's a quiet dead-end street. You have Melody, you have Newell, you have Facto, which Facto and Newell are connected together, but still are kind of like dead-end streets. I was born and raised in this town, I live in that area for 45 years, I enjoy it immensely. There's been a lot of changes with the mall coming close to us, but however, there's still quiet streets because there's not a lot of traffic there. If we connect an apartment housing to the end of our street that puts in, I don't know what number they're gonna put in there, 40, 60 people, it's gonna detrimentally change the whole makeup of our community. So again, it's hard to actually sit here and have rebuttal for the project because it's ever changing and we don't honestly know what it is. So I think again, once again, it's really important that we have a moratorium to see if we can rezone this so that we stay with single family homes, such that that's what we have now, and our community stays that way that it is. So that we don't have any major changes that change the whole outlook of our community. That's really all I have. If anyone else has anything to offer, thank you.
Appreciate it, thank you. Is there anyone else seeking to speak tonight? I guess I would just share a couple things. This certainly has not fallen on deaf ears. I want to let you know that I've personally been spending a lot of time and energy, and I just want to give you a quick summary to date. I think it's just important we want to outline the facts and the process of the procedures of some things, and then try to give you some additional information. The project was before the planning board on September 15, 2015, at a time the planning board acted to deny the request for the multifamily housing development by resolution 1252. A special proceeding pursuant to Article 78 of the New York Civil Service Practice Law and Rules was commenced by the petitioner, which is 15 Champlain LLC, and recorded with the Clinton County Clerk on October 15, 2015, seeking judicial review of the said planning board resolution. Subsequent to the proceeding, the town planning board received an order and judgment dated February 9, 2016. The planning board was ordered to adjudge to A, provide the petitioner and applicant the opportunity to confer with the planning board staff, and offer a pre-submittal review following the public hearings and comments. And B, complete the necessary procedures in accordance with Article 8 of the Environmental Conservation Law and the regulations and promulgated thereto, and C, then address the pending site plan application in accordance with the laws of the state of New York and the local laws of the town of Plattsburgh. Following that, planning staff, the deputy town attorney, and the town codes enforcement officer met with the petitioner, applicant's representatives, Arian Ovius, John Jusharam, to offer pre-submittal review following the public hearing comments in accordance with the order A, above. The meeting was held at the town offices on March 22nd, 2016, and consisted of an informative and productive conversation regarding the maps, plans, submittal information, and materials required to complete the application, as well as the specific nature, scope, and details of the proposed project. The planning board shall now conduct a review of the application's plans in accordance with orders B and C above. Planning and code staff, along with the deputy town attorney, met with the project representatives to discuss the revised plans on July 21st, 2016. Then, on August 30th, 2016, the planning department received revised site plans for consideration at the September 20th, 2016 planning board meeting. On September 9th, 2016, senior planner Trevor Cole received an email from the codes enforcement officer Stephen Imhoff indicating the revised plans included an office that was not permitted in the R2 district and said it would require a variance. On September 20th, 2016, the planning board conducted a public hearing on the project and further did determine that the detailed preliminary site plan review application was incomplete. Since the project did not have the necessary variances, this material came from the senior planner here at the town of Plattsburgh. I can certainly, Mr. Lacy and I have had some conversations, and a couple other residents on the street and I have had conversations. I can empathize greatly with the frustration of the process of government. I often refer to government works at glacial speed at times. Sometimes that is to the benefit of individuals when they object to a project, because it means that it's going through thorough review, meaning that the process is being reviewed at each stage. I can tell you that there, you know, and there's still more conversations to occur. A potential moratorium that is being suggested would have additional adverse impacts on your town, where it would stop all projects across the town borders. We can't just simply put a push pin in that particular section of the town. The codes officer said he believed, well, you know, couldn't be quoted exactly on this, thinking of all of the economic impact would be in the multi-millions of dollars of what people are doing with other projects around the town. There are a number of classifications. R2 has been zoned that way for at least 2 decades, and that doesn't alleviate the issues and consideration that you're putting forth. But we do need to do our due diligence to give consideration to what may be available to make changes. I can tell you that C.J. Madonners, who is our deputy lawyer, walks the codes and planning department through things on behalf of the taxpayers and residents in each case, to make sure that items are defensible on behalf of the rules and regulations that have been adopted by the town on behalf of its residents and taxpayers. So this is not quote-unquote over. We are following along the path of procedure. So it's currently where we stand. It doesn't mean that this project will necessarily take root. It doesn't mean that it may not take root. We are going through the path of procedure. It's currently where we stand. Again, I can empathize with your concerns and frustration, though. That may not mean much to you, but I mean it sincerely. We're working through the path of procedure at the moment.
If I may, what procedures, if any, are going to be taking place to make a determination whether or not we're going to be able to be changed from R2 to an R1?
The moratorium is, to be quite frankly, very unlikely. There may be some additional conversations to see what could occur. I can give you, I can only speak personally if other counselors would like to go in. LeBaire Street, for example, is in a very unique situation. You're in a very unique situation, but spot zoning has to be in consideration. It's illegal to spot zone, to just come in and address some things. So some further research needs to be done, to be quite frank. I can't guarantee today that it can or it won't occur. Some conversations are occurring. Some of the procedural items that may be anticipated are things like requiring the project to meet the highest standards, such as parking, for example. I just used that one example. There are a litany of things that project may be held to, that they may say it's not within their interest to further the project anymore. We have seen that before, you know, it becomes just too cumbersome.
In the first meeting over a year ago, I made the statement, as being a lifelong resident here, I knew the individual was behind this project, and we'd be at many, many different meetings. And here I'm at another one. Concerns with it as well is that they said at the last meeting they're not gonna have an office. They have already been shown to be working at a scope, working with an office in the building that's there now. There was a cease and desist order or something, I don't know the terminology, you know as well as I do what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
And they have shown, due to past practices, that they're not gonna comply with this request in no office. What is happening here is that they're not gonna go forward for a variance, because obviously they cannot ask and get a variance because of the animosity against the project, or whatever you wanna call it. I'm lack of words, I'm just shooting from the hip here. it's just not gonna happen. So, it's not gonna go as planned. I mean, the plans seem to change every single time when it's up put on the screen, and there is no solid factors as to what we're even looking at. So how can we even debate whether or not we're gonna be in scope? Because there's no consistency to look at it. So I cannot sit up here and say this is X, Y, and Z, what's wrong with this program, because every single time I come to look at it and to assess it, and if I had a 40-hour-a-week job to do that, we'd be having a totally different conversation. But every time I come here to a meeting, I see a changed animal on the board up here that has, no matter what it be, doesn't seem to be conducive to the neighborhood.
In some ways, I would say that that has been a good thing, only from the standpoint of, I think part of the reasons that you've seen this change multiple times is because they haven't been able to meet the standards that was necessarily put forth, and no shovel has been in the ground because of that. And I'm not defending the project, what I'm saying is the process has challenged them along the ways that has required them to go to the zoning board of appeals to get, a review. So they too are getting, pushed through the system in the process of things. The final determination may review, they need to meet X, Y, and Z, and if they can't meet X, Y, and Z, then the project would not move forward.
The major changes I see in their plans are simply just calling the office to change it to storage. They're gonna end up storing an office in there is what they're gonna do.
And
That's been shown by the past practices. There's no, I mean, if I told you, sat here and said what I did for a living, I mean, I can't, but, this is not my first rodeo, folks. It's not. I understand human nature. My degree is not in blueprints. My degree is in psychology. We all know what it is, and we just don't want to get sued again. It seems like on the town's behalf, because that's what happened. But on behalf of Melody Lane, I think there's obviously, if this doesn't happen to be where the project ends up being meeting every single aspect under fine tooth and comb, there's gonna be multiple lawsuits coming out of this, and we don't need that. That's why we're here trying at this level to fix that. And I think what needs to be done is just to look at hard and long about getting a new type of zoning here for this. And I think that'd be a solution that would suit the neighborhood. I think, in fact, that we should zone Facto and Newell as well. It's just that they don't seem to meet the standards because they don't have sewer. But I own property there as well, so.
And what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that it's not potentially an option. What I'm saying is we need to further look at it because we cannot spot zone. So if there are some opportunities, we will continue to evaluate that. The other piece of it is Patty Caldwell. I don't know if Patty's here tonight.
She's not.
She and I had lengthy conversations, and you'll note that this has been going on since September 15, 2015. When I became supervisor, one of the first things I did was to find a means to leverage shutting the office down at that property. So I'm saying to you and everybody on the street, you have my commitment to leverage what the town has in our ability to make sure that they're meeting the standards of whatever happens with the project. That's not saying it's happening, but what I'm saying is, should it occur, and there's concerns, we will continue to hold them accountable under whatever jurisdiction we have.
By that time, it's gonna be too late, and the property values are gonna be just
And I'm not, I can't agree or disagree to that because we're going through the process of the pipeline. What I am saying though is, if that project does happen though, the town will leverage whatever resources that we have to make sure if they cannot have an office there, okay? I'm just saying that I will make sure that our codes officer goes down and shuts the office down.
How long did it take after the first time they had an office in that building for that to happen, sir? It
This
was
is
quite some time.
And that's why I know it's been going on since September. I became your supervisor in January. I'm just saying, what I personally can do, I can't mitigate all the feelings and issues that you have. That's why I empathize with you. I think our town board wants to do right by you, but there are some things that we can manage because of, our ability. And then there are certain laws, state zoning, etc., that we may not have the influence that you wish we did, which I get the frustration, I do. So our commitment is to do what we can on behalf of you, and we'll continue the conversation. we really will.
Okay, I hope we will look at it seriously for rezoning. And I would like to see, what is, if you could, what is the definition of a spot? Because I get the idea of my house being zoned as R1, whereas what a spot would be.
Could you,
How many more houses?
I
do you
know,
have to
I know our-
Get out of a spot.
I know our deputy attorney does.
There's no set definition, but spot zoning would be, say, to automatically just change this without having a well thought out plan and doing it for just a couple pieces of property, or in this case, just one street.
Okay, it has to be after for three
Yeah, for three what?
streets of rezoning.
And that's why, you know, we need to have more conversation.
Let me just say this, two things that you've asked for. What I heard you ask for is a zone change. Zoning change is regarding by our ordinance requires from a petition of people or from the town board, it goes to the planning board. The planning board looks at it and sits back a report. It's not done overnight. So if that's gonna be considered from changing you from R2 to R1, there is a process, and that process takes time. The other thing would be is you asked, so there is a process for doing that, and they could look at that. As to whether it would go through from R2 and R1, we'd have to gather all the information, the facts, the district, what would be existing now, whether we were expanding any other lands into it, and looking at it. So it's just not overnight that you can change, boom. There's a process. We just did a zoning amendment. It took, what, 60, 90 days?
We're still
But
going
we do.
through- We're still going through
We're
one.
working on it. You also asked earlier, your first request, and the reason why I was here, I came here specifically is about a moratorium. I'll speak to all of you. The law does not allow a moratorium to come in and to stop a pending application. So what I told Mike and the board was, hey, I can't do this. If I created the moratorium, and maybe a moratorium could look at future, quote, multifamilies with maybe tighten up the definition of multifamily, trying to put a handle on what this project really is, because it goes under multifamily, but the type of the things would be, we might be able to define it, but I'm stuck with the laws that I have right now on the books. And unfortunately, that's the law, and that's what I want to report to you, because I'm just gonna be very transparent and candid. So I can't really stop this in the bud, but we could look at things like maybe a better parking definition, or other things like that. That usually, if we did a moratorium, we could stop it. And what Mike's saying is, I'm gonna now have to stop it where? Just on Melody or all R2s, and trying to change that definition. And that's the economic impact. Before I would recommend to do that, to look at the economic impact of such would be doing, maybe the easiest thing is to use a zoning change to change the definition of, i.e. the parking requirements, or the definition of a multifamily dwelling, and probably put a little bit more teeth into it, because our definition is very wide. And you all listen to it, and all I can say is, I gotta be careful, I'm still technically in court. I wanna respond to you, but on the flip side, there's a pending application, and I can't create a moratorium to stop it. That's the law.
So, and that's why I said, we really do empathize with where you're coming from. We're trying to negotiate the process to understand what can be leveraged and what can't be leveraged on your behalf. Because we have to be equitable in the way that we, you know, approach this. When people come in, we'll give you the information, you know, that we have. We'll show you the same laws, the same zoning. You know, we are not holding any information back from you. We'll certainly give it to you. If you have questions, if you're like, if a light bulb went off at 3 o'clock in the morning, please don't call me the next day in the office, but seriously, we'll have that conversation. We'll try to look at the different aspects to this. I know there was a person that raised.
I was just curious, is what they're doing come under the heading of multifamily? Because it doesn't sound like a family-oriented type of living situation.
And
Multifamily addresses the type of units that you have, not the type of people that are inside.
Well, it's not,
Family,
excuse me, I'm not talking about the type of people.
Okay.
I'm talking about a number of people living in bedrooms that don't know each other, that are not a family, that are strangers to one another perhaps, with a common living room, common bath, common kitchen. I'm not talking about the type of people, that's not the issue at all.
Well, that's what I was trying to, the
Yeah.
definition of family says 6 or more unrelated people, so they've got only 4 in there. There's nothing in the definition
it
of,
says 6
there's
or-
nothing in the definition, correct, it's the magic number 6. There's nothing in the definition that stops them from having a lock on each individual bedroom, or having each individual bedroom have a urinal or
Yeah,
bathroom
supposed to have
facilities.
bathrooms.
That's, you know, let me just tell you, it's the first time I've seen this type of development come to us and say, this is multifamily, and by the way, that is only one unit, so, no,
It's not really.
well,
And-
I gotta live with what my
Yeah, I know.
definition is.
And I'm gonna speak on behalf of CJ, because CJ asked me to clarify. At this point, really, that's as much as CJ can say, because he does represent the town.
No, let me clarify, I don't represent them. That young man does. He's the town attorney. My obligation is to this. My obligation is to the planning board and the zoning board. And I have a pending application in front of it, so that's why I can't go into details of this application. And I can't say to them, let's do a moratorium. All I can say is, if you gentlemen wanna do a moratorium, you wanna do a zoning change, this project as it sits right now would be exempt, in simple language. And the more, and I don't wanna keep saying, cause I know, if I say anything, I'm gonna probably read about it by Mr. Ducharme in his papers.
Where's Mr. Ducharme?
Mr. Ducharme is Mr. Lattimille's attorney.
Yeah.
I've just got a couple of questions. We keep mentioning this, the process that we all have to go through. When we first started this, and I spoke my concerns last month, so I'll save you the time on the concerns. When we first started this, the planning board mentioned that this project wasn't in the vision of the Tom Miller Road and the planning board's vision of the Tom Miller Road area. And one of the members mentioned that it would be a failure of local government if this project were to go through. And what the question about the process is, obviously you said it has gone through everything, it's moved from month to month. We've been here a bunch of times. This process, you know, their lawyers are being paid to be here. We're taking time off of work to be here. And so this process, my fear, is going to get drawn out month after month after month. And one day this process it'll be approved, because we may not be here in one particular night because of prior obligations. And so is there a definite point, when I remember asking the question to one of the board members, is this, once it got voted down the first time, is this finished? And his response was, it's finished, but they can sue. So obviously they've done that, they've sued. Is there a definite point where the planning board can say, we're no longer going to discuss this project, whether or not they approve it or not? Is there, I mean, my question is, if they say no, can they just keep changing the project forever and make us keep coming here month after month? Or is there a definite spot where once they say no, there's a no and it's a final no? That's my question.
I know Mary wanted to sit, do you wanna comment on that particular thing, or do you want me to address that and then bounce to you?
I wanted to make a comment regarding, the word keeps being used, the process or whatever, and you're alluding to this, the amount of time that's involved. I will tell you that the amount of time that's being taken, all right, is working to your benefit. Try to believe that, because
I do
it
believe
really
that.
is.
I'm not saying.
The developer is having to pay, okay, if he has professional people involved at his elbow for all of those sessions, all right? You're fortunate in that you have each other, and you're finding resources within your neighborhood to bring your argumentation to the fore. When we were presented with a proposal for the development of housing that would provide housing for workers, and they were looking to locate that housing in the ampersand area behind the mall and adjacent to Ruger Street, whatever. One of the things that we were very fortunate to have happen was, in that particular case, we had a developer who was very cooperative and listened to the requests that the planning board had, that development creates, a standard that has now been set, okay? When that kind of added density is considered to be brought into an area, one of the things that you have to look at is you have to look at, you know, the impact that they're gonna have on traffic. You have to look at the impact that they're gonna have on parking in the area. You know, they can't come in and say, we're gonna have 28 units and we'll have 28 parking spaces. I mean, that's ridiculous, because you don't build one parking space per unit. You know, you used to do that in the 50s, because, you know, maybe they had one car per household, but that's not the way the world works today. So you don't get to do that, all right? So they have to come in with a sensible parking plan, and that plan has to recognize not just the people who are going to live there, but it also has to recognize people who will come to visit. And then it also has to recognize the people who are going to be working there. So the number of spaces has to be set accordingly. Then you also have the problem of pedestrian traffic, okay? And that's a particular concern of mine when I look at that area. And your comment that was made about people crossing the road, et cetera, in my mind, and I don't think it's at all unreasonable, and it's something that fits part of a plan that the town of Plattsburgh is working toward on all of our major arteries, and that's sidewalks. Okay? So I don't see where these kinds of issues, I see these issues coming up, and I see the developer is going to have to confront these kinds of issues. Now, the developer may come to the conclusion that this piece of property is not the piece of property that he wants to develop this project on. All right? And that may happen because of the considerations that go with where he sought to locate it. Now, he could take his project and locate a project in a different area and not have those same considerations. If he picked a more rural setting or whatever, he might not have the same kinds of considerations, or he might be able to achieve what he needs to achieve because he can purchase more land, he'd have more area to deal with things like parking, et cetera. So the process will, and it's been said many times, and I just want to reiterate, that process has to run its course, and it will, okay? But I think right now, you have a situation where I think you have a situation where they are going to have to go before the planning board. And I think as long as they have to go before the planning board, then the planning board is going to be able to lay out for them what they have to do. Because I think there is a serious deficiency in what they have in their plans right now in terms of what would be reasonable concerns.
Go ahead.
Can I just ask just a couple things, just one, in response to your parking problem, I just want to make you all aware of, as far as parking goes, just a few weeks before the planning board meeting, actually just a few days before the last planning board meeting, I forgot to mention this the last time I spoke. As we're on Tom Miller Road coming to the stop sign, taking a right, there was a yard sale right there happening that day. There was just a couple of cars there, and there was a car accident right there in that spot. So adding, 20 to 30 cars, major issue, like you said, parking concern. And again, my question would be, is there a point where there is a final say with the planning board, or can this project go on forever?
You're not gonna maybe particularly like this answer, but no, because, they could come before the planning board, right? And they could say, 7 or 8 o'clock, I'm gonna use simple math here, there's 5 rooms to the house, okay? And you wanna, make sure that you have 5 parking spaces. That's the requirement, that's the standard, they build the 5 parking spaces. Then we say the mobility of that area, that quarter needs sidewalks. Okay, I'll build sidewalks. Okay, well, I want you, the planning board come up with a litany of things for requirements, and that developer could say, yeah, I'll sink the money into doing that. The likelihood, I think, is what Marty is saying, that that may outweigh the cost-benefit ratio there. But there's still a number of things that need to occur, by dialoguing with the planning department. And I'd rather reflect on your comment or your question of, will it be influenced by your absence? No, it won't. I'm really confident in our planning board that, I really admire residents that come out. I'm not joking with you that we don't have people coming to our meetings. You're passionate about something and you're bringing forth a concern to us, in a constructive way. I really appreciate that, because I don't think anybody here is sharpening their pitchforks. I think what you're saying is, what's the standard? Are they meeting the standard? And those are the 2 pieces of the conversation that I'm honing on. I don't think any one of you are judging the program or the project's development. I think what you're asking is good, solid questions of, at the end of my street, there's gonna be a family structure, lots of people, lots of traffic, a number of things that you want answers to. And the planning board needs to navigate that, to identify what it can and cannot do through the procedures. So. Other questions, concerns?
Well, can I just say something? I think it's very hard to even imagine 3 more buildings on that piece of property, plus keeping the house. I can't imagine that. And we have like 65 to 70 residents that live on the street. You're talking about 30 to 48 that are going to be just in this 1.4 area. It's crazy. And then the driveway right now is going off on the Tom Mill Road, but they want to now change it to Melody Lane. Why? Is there a reason why that has to happen? I'm just asking.
I honestly can't speak. I've not seen the last kind of blueprints, for lack of better words.
Actually, that was in the beginning though, too.
Yeah,
But
right.
again,
It's always come off Melody Lane for some reason, which is odd to us.
yeah.
Because it's always been going off on the Tom Miller Road, so.
Where is the parking lot going to be? Do you know offhand?
I don't have the plot in front of me.
You can't do
Right in the
it.
middle of all the houses.
Yeah.
Facing Melody Lane.
It's right in the middle of the lot itself.
Right.
There's a house and then
Right.
there are apartments on the outside of
And
the
in the
property.
middle.
Right in the middle. They want to
Right in
put
the
it.
middle. So there's not gonna be any green space for if they have
All the
kids.
green and all the trees will be gone.
Yes.
So,
Going back to one of the first meetings that was held in regards to this, I thought someone said that the county did not want this going out, that on the Tom Miller Road, they wanted to come on to Melody Lane instead.
that may be true. I can't substantiate that at this moment, but I can say that the planning board, all those items will be under review for consideration, what the impact is. There may be a need for a traffic study. There could be a number of things. So we're talking about the process, but I go back to the very beginning of my comments. I understand your frustration. Government works at glacial speed, and sometimes, as Marty had said, this may be to your benefit, because what we're doing is we're trying to really check all the boxes and understand what it is. And as Mr. Lisa did, you can't judge something that you don't know what it is. So as each batch of plans come before us, that's what we need to review. That's what we have to consider, or the planning board does, I should say. So your concerns do not fall on deaf ears. You don't necessarily need to be there. I wouldn't certainly advocate for you not to be there. I think that your presence is always appreciated in any forum. If there's public forums again, which I anticipate if there's changes, there will be more, to voice your concerns. But I'm just not the type of person to give empty promises to say that it is or isn't happening. But we march forward along the process, and we will do our best to manage under the means that we have for you folks, so.
I'd like to make one other comment. I want to congratulate the people who are here. You have been unbelievably polite, and I know you come in here very anxious about the situation. And that's refreshing, because so very often, when we have these kinds of situations, we have people come in and the anger just boils over, and you've avoided having that happen. I can tell you myself, for one, and I think I can speak for other people on this board, we're not in a position to promise you, because we don't, there's a firewall between the town board, the planning board, and a zoning board, and it should be. And you don't want a government that tries to take that down. You really don't want that, okay? We get criticized by certain people and because they want to point their finger at us and tell people, others, that we are anti-development, because we will hold a developer's feet to the fire. But I think we also have planners and zoners working for us who know that we stand behind them, that they're not, they're not going to have their jobs in jeopardy because we disagree that they are enforcing the rules and regulations that are in place. All right? And so when we say the process, we mean the rule of law will be applied as it should be applied. There is no recognition of name, there is no recognition of the amount of money behind a project. Those are those are not the considerations. The consideration is, does this project meet the rules and the regulations of our zoning and planning regulations? And that's what our people are charged to look at. And we stand behind them, and we'll work with them to try to make sure that, the full process is exercised.
I just like to say one thing in terms of the people that serve on the planning board and the zoning board. They're volunteers, they don't get paid, they go to trainings, they show up and come to meetings every month. They have to read a lot of material, they visit sites, and whatever decisions end up being made, they're regular citizens like yourself who are willing to serve on these things. And I'm highly, I really believe that they're the best kind of public servants. They're doing what they can. Obviously, no one knows all of the aspects of it, and it's really difficult to plan way ahead. When we were doing the comprehensive land use plan and we're making zoning and stuff, it's very difficult to anticipate everything that's going to happen. And once you have that law in place, that's the law until you change it. And so if somebody applies at that point, okay, they can still do it even though we might want to change the law later. I wish we had foresight to be able to tell when those situations are what they're going to be, but it doesn't happen. So any suggestions as we go along, and I know it's your particular project, but there'll be other things in the town as well as it comes forward. And any suggestions or things that can be used for your area or other areas are welcome.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I just want to thank you, Mr. Cashman, for ceasing the operation of that office, because they were told to cease before that, and they continued, and they were still parking on Melody Lane when they were having their meetings and things, so even though they were told to stop, they just continued, so we're like, well, what can be done? But I know that you did stop that, so I do want to thank you for that.
Not a problem. That's where I'm saying, sincerely, that's my job. I'll do what I can within kind of my jurisdiction, I'll end on two things, just because we have an amassed crowd of people that are concerned citizens, which I love to see. One, the town continues to make every effort to be more transparent. We just launched an e-newsletter. Our second edition just went out this evening. News and notices, if you go to the townofplattsburgh.org, you can sign up for that. And we're gonna try to continue to put more information out about the town's happenings and things like that. So we record our meetings. We do that again to go on public access to inform our citizens so that they understand what's occurring. And the last thing is on Saturday, October 15th, here, starting at 8 a.m., we have our budget hearings, or budget workshop. And, if you wanna grab a Dunkin' Donuts coffee and join us and hear about the department heads, again, we are trying to make government more accessible to you, the people that we serve. I fully acknowledge, government doesn't get it always right. And I always use the example of my wife and I don't agree 100% of the time. As I'm sure you and your loved ones, be it husband, wife, kids, neighbors, whatever, but through some communication, collaboration, and compromise, we can usually find a solution that tends to address the majority of the issues that are there. So thank you for your engaged interest this evening, and we'll continue to be in touch. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm leaving, guys. Thank you.
CJ. Bye, CJ.
No,
And anybody's welcome to stay, that
Yeah,
doesn't
you're-
address it. I won't say it's gonna be interesting.
Now they know that it's gonna be on, tape, they'll be pulling it up.
Mr. Cashman, thank you.
Yeah.
No problem. The other thing that I would just make note of for you folks, as I did say, the e-news and notices are rather small as I continue to experiment with this new kind of service. But Benjamin Giroux, I wish I had mentioned it to them, our poet laureate, just launched a national PSA with the Autism Alliance Association for Anti-Bullying Month for October, which I think is really incredible. So he has been able to take his kind of viral status, and it went to a whole other level, and he's representing the town through a national PSA with that association, which is kind of neat. So it's kind of neat, and that's in that newsletter. So for draft and consideration, you will see the minutes. You'll also see monthly reports. A draft resolution, for culvert pipe from the highway department. Also included will be a draft resolution for the request for a combination dump box and material spreader from the highway department. And then, some additional, requirements for the lead agency determination for SUNY, Poly, Norsk, Plattsburgh subdivision and site plan. So that really is the majority of what is before you. As always, some things may change from between now and next Monday. If you have any questions, comments, concerns. Are there any general committee statements, reports?
Are we expecting anybody to challenge our request to be lead agency
No.
on that?
No, we don't anticipate it. In fact, having a conversation with Trevor, he believes that some of the other entities will actually be quite relieved that we're doing that. And it tends to fall to the local level. So we need to just plod along in that process, but no one else has expressed an interest at this point.
It's rare that somebody says, oh, I want to be, once in a while, isn't it?
So, it's not like, what is it, I can't even think of a good example, actually, so, just stop
You're
there.
out of metaphors for
Yeah, I'm
tonight?
out of metaphors for the night.
Oh.
So, anything for committee reports?
Michael, I bring a couple things. For committee.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I know we've come to almost 8 o'clock, so I'd like to indulge my colleagues only because I'm a new counselor, so I wanted to comment on a couple of things in terms of committees.
Yep.
One of the committees that I'm serving on, and it's serving on with Tom, is the planning department. And I think this was a great platform tonight in understanding the complexities of what happens in that planning department. So I think part of the role as counselors is to help educate our public, including myself, about that. So I guess I just want to kind of give a quick synopsis in terms of my, 10-month
Sure.
learning curve. But, the planning department is, I've seen them as a technical advisor to the planning board and, the town board for comprehensive planning and zoning, which is what we've been talking about several meetings. Grants administration, that's something that I think Tom and I have had a chance to talk to the planning department about, the things that they're doing, whether it be with the Department of State grant for the waterfront revitalization, some of the key projects like the LaPierre Lane, the Solarize, coast Adirondack. That's been, I asked Trevor exactly what was the anticipation for the number of requests, and so I guess there's been, I think, 18, unless I'm off by 1 or 2, but I think that's a good response.
And still going, mind you.
Right, and 9 are in the town of Plattsburgh, so I asked that even granular question. So again, and the other thing is this whole thing of local law administration. I think that was brought to my attention. I mean, even things like telecommunication. Someone wants to put a tower somewhere. We look at local law. So again, some of the facets of the planning department, and again, I'm just learning as much as I can. Also, I think the planning department is serving as a regional leader when it comes to training. NYSERDA, Department of State, EPA. It's almost like it's train the trainer opportunity. So, again, these are things that I just wanted to bring up because as a new town councilor, there is so much to absorb in terms of the operation of the town. The other thing is I serve on the Justice Court Committee, and I guess I just wanted to share with colleagues that one of the things I'm looking at, which is integral to the audit committee that Meg and I serve on, is that, the security that takes place in the courts. And I've kind of been looking at it, Michael, we've talked in terms of the overtime. Kind of watching the solutions to managing things better and, again, having conversations and dialogue with the right people. But that's something I know I've talked to Tom about and been paying attention to that, again, through the audit process, because I think that's hopefully come up with a solution that would be more cost effective.
Barb, and I just want to point out more specifically kind of what you were talking about as it relates to the overtime. So we're using the sheriff's department, as we know, for the bailiff program. And, sometimes we're able to capture an individual from that department that is, kind of is part of the overtime schedule and some not. And we've had conversations with the sheriff to really kind of hone in and make sure that he does, or the scheduler does, all that they can to address that stuff, to not provide undue burden to the town. But it's having that multi-layered review occurring so that we can continue to target a number of items. So, any other committee reports or issues? Without further ado, I see no need for a motion for an executive session unless anyone else wants to make one for something that I don't know of. Seeing none, then we will adjourn this place at 8:04. And please remember Saturday's budget session, please.
Michael, do you know by any chance if Melody Lane was actually a planned subdivision development?
I don't know the knowledge in front
Or
of
if
me.
it was just lots that were sold?
I
You
don't
have
know
no
off
clue.
off the top of my head. You held it, but we-
Do you know? Do you know?
What's that?